Okay, today we're talking about the quadratic formula, which is basically putting together factoring, completing the square. It's just another method to solve those equations that have the ax squared plus bx plus c. So it's just a third way to solve them. And we are going to have this format again of equaling 0. So this is our handy-dandy formula right there. You will need to memorize this. So on the homework page there is a link to a song to help you memorize it. And whatever helps you memorize it, great. But just make sure you have it memorized. So there's two pieces to the quadratic formula. The first is the discriminant, which is this formula right here. And if you look, that's the under the radical part. So that part is just like a predictor. It's a way of finding out how many solutions you have, so how many x equals you have, without actually having to solve the whole formula. So if you look at these three options, A, B, and C, when you plug in that b squared minus 4ac, you plug it in, and d is bigger than 0, so it's positive, then your answers for x should be like 2 and 7, two real numbers. If you get that d is 0, then there's one real number. Maybe it's x is 2, but there's no other number when you solve it. And then if it's less than 0, then you would have a negative radical. So you'd have imaginary numbers. You might have I radical 3 and x equals negative I radical 3, but you've got that I there, imaginary. So those are predictors. That's when you don't have to solve the whole thing. So the first part of your homework is going to be that discriminant part, just predicting. And when you are predicting, you just have to say this piece, the how many solutions you have, and what d was to predict that solution. Okay, so when you actually go to solve the whole problem, where you use the whole formula, that x is equal to negative b plus or minus square root of, all of that. You have to make sure it looks like this. Okay, so we're going to have the numbers on the left side again, just like 3.2. You find out A, B, and C, and you plug it right in. That's it. There's no extra dividing steps. There's no moving anything else. No having to square root. So if you look at problem number 1, let's try that. So this problem's already written in the perfect format, so we don't need to manipulate the equation. Go ahead and find A, B, and C right now. Okay, you should have gotten A equals 2, B equals 1, C equals negative 1. You do want the signs here. Okay, and looking back to the formula that we had before, that one I had you memorize, you're going to fill in all these parentheses. So negative b is the first piece, so we're going to have negative 1. Then the plus minus sign, radical, and then you have b squared, so 1 squared, minus 4ac over 2a. Okay, from there, it is just simplifying. So that's going to be the biggest part, is just rewriting it and rewriting it till it gets smaller. So we can simplify the radical a little bit. We have 1 squared, which is, I'll write it in a different color here, which is 1. And then negative 4 times 2 times negative 1 gives you a positive, because of the two negatives, a positive 8. So 1 plus 8 gives you 9 as your whole radical piece over 4. And radical 9 breaks down to whole number 3. So we have two answers here. We have n equals negative 1 plus 3 over 4, and n equals negative 1 minus 3 over 4. So go ahead and solve the top and divide by 4, and then make sure you reduce your fractions, and go ahead and try and find your two answers for n. Okay, you should have gotten 1/2 as your first answer, and negative 1 as your second answer, and that's it. So, quadratic formula is nice because it works every single time, even when factoring would be hard or completing the square would be hard. Quadratic formula will always work. It's just a little messy sometimes when you're trying to reduce the radical. Okay, problem number 2. We don't need to manipulate this one because it's already in the correct form. Saved you a little bit of work there. Go ahead and write down A, B, and C. Okay, A is -7, B is -2, C is 9. And if you look, this one just asks for the discriminant and the type of solutions. So that's the formula that's just D equals B squared minus 4AC. So you're going to fill in the parentheses with B squared minus 4AC. Reduce that, solve it, write down your whole number answer at the end there. Okay, you should have gotten 4, that is positive, and then plus, and you should get, let's see, 252 there. So our answer for D is 256, because you add those two pieces. So it is positive, so D is greater than 0. And you will say that there are 2 real solutions. And that's all. You don't have to solve for the x values. You just need to solve for D. That's it. Okay, the last problem. You need to manipulate this equation, so go ahead and do that. Okay, you have to add 7r squared. Make sure you add like terms. So we get 5r squared there. 4r we have to move over. So plus 4r because it doesn't combine with anything. And you have to make sure that it is in the right order. Squared, letter, number. So A, B, C, go ahead and find those. Okay, A is 5, B is 4, C is -9. And we're going to plug in. And when you do this, make sure you do R equals here, because that's the variable. So we'll get R is equal to -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times A times C, all over 2 times A. Okay, go ahead and reduce this and write down your 2 answers. Okay, let's walk through this if you didn't get that. So 2 times 5 is 10, -4 plus or minus, and in the radical we have 16 plus 180. And together that does make 196. And 196 does reduce, so we aren't going to have a radical here. Sometimes you will, and that's fine. So we'll have -4 plus or minus 14 over 10. So our 2 answers will be R equals -4 plus 14 over 10. And R equals -4 minus 14 over 10. And because they're whole numbers, we need to combine them. So for here, we will get, oh, we don't even have a line there. We just get 1. And on this one, we are going to get -9 over 5. So make sure you got those 2 answers. And if your answer didn't have a whole number, you would have the square root. And just make sure you write the 2 separate answers like we did on completing the square. And that's it.